Hello. One of the frequently asked questions during my entire career has been, why study Turkey? What's a big deal? I had two answers to this question. One was short, and the other one was long. So the short one was, why not? And the longer one was much more elaborated one, because I wanted to understand Turkey from within. Because in the 1990s, there was a lot going on in Armenia, and there was a gap in understanding what was really going on in Turkey. In addition to this, there was no quite developed academic expert community in Armenia. And right after the proclamation of independence, there were there was an outburst of genocide studies in Armenia. There were lots of things going on in Armenia in addition to Nagorno-Karabakh war. And the Turkish position in the Nagorno-Karabakh war was very essential and was very critical to reshape the image of Turkey in the minds of many Armenians. So what was happening in the beginning of 1990s, in the minds of many Armenians living in Armenia, there was an image of brutal Turk who is going to invade into Armenia one day or another and to do basically what it did during the genocide. And the year 1993 is critical from many perspectives. Why 1993? That's a year when Armenia was this close to sign the normalization protocol of diplomatic relations with Turkey, and that was a year when Turkey was about to invade Armenia in October 1993. When Turkey mobilized its armed forces along the Turkish-Armenian borders, and in the minds and thoughts of Armenians were about, oh, there's something going on, and we have to find the ways to mitigate this great danger, this security threat. So, since from the very beginning of independence, Armenia's position, official position, has been to establish diplomatic relations with Armenia, with Turkey, without any preconditions. In 2008 and 2009, everybody followed here the effort to establish diplomatic relations, something which is called football diplomacy. That failed, but once again, in the minds of many Armenians in Armenia, the expressions that started to evolve were more or less in the following shape. You see, Turks deceived Armenians again. How could Armenians trust Turks? Turkish diplomacy prevailed. So this kind of negative images were reaffirmed in the public discussions, in the public discourse in Armenia. And with that, something interesting also happened in the public discussions. It brought back the question how well Armenia knows Turkey. Well, nowadays, we do know Turkey much better than it was 10 years ago, but do we know much enough about Turkey to claim that there is a general understanding of Turkey among Armenians? Well, I have to say that in the minds of many Armenians living in Armenia, there is a doomsday scenario coming back and forth from time to time, and the Turkish government, I have to say, is doing its utmost to contribute to the consolidation of this image that Turkey is not constructive, Turkey is not helping enough to change its image in the minds of the Armenian people. In my interviews in Armenia, many young journalists, when they take interviews, one of the questions that they ask is the following: what do you think when Turkey is going to invade into Armenia? That may sound simple question, but it tells a lot about the minds of the young people in Armenia and how insecure many people in Armenia feel about Turkey and about the Turkish the policy emanating from Turkey. And the Turkish leaders, actually, we have to say that they are doing their utmost to incite bigotry and hatred towards Armenia, not only living in Turkey, but also Armenians living in Armenia and also in the diaspora. So what do we have nowadays? Nowadays, the people in Armenia understand that they are not only Turks living in Turkey, as the Turkish constitution claims, and also as an official narrative claims. We do know in Armenia that there are more and more emerging identities in Turkey. We also know much better Western Armenia nowadays than it was 10 years ago, than it was 20 years ago. In Armenian TV programs, you can see many interesting documentaries by young professional, young journalists who go and basically discover village by village, church by church, and which brings new knowledge, new idea about Turkey. And we nowadays, we can say that we know Turkey much better than it was 10 years ago. What's the opposite side? How well Turkey and average Turks know about the citizens of Turkey, I have to say, know about Armenia. Well, I have to say that also has changed just a little bit, because 10 years ago, when there was a public opinion survey, like 25% of the respondents said that Armenia is a country in the Mediterranean Sea with a majority of population believing in Islam. So there was also this misunderstanding of Armenians and the role of Armenia in the world. So what also happened recently was Turkish government's desire to reach out to the Armenian diaspora. It has been an official policy of Turkey starting from 2011 when Turkish Foreign Minister Ahmet Davutoglu said that we have to work out with our own Armenians, meaning those Armenians who left Turkey and basically they are Turkish Armenians. There have been many efforts by the Turkish Foreign Ministry, by the Turkish embassies to reach out to Armenians, to establish networks, to establish connections. So it was an effort to basically to diversify their approach and their understanding of Armenian issues and to work better with diaspora. Many people believe that the year 2015, the centennial, is going to be a game changer. Well, I have to say that Armenia became one step mature in understanding Turkey, because many strategies that we staunchly believed in the 1990s and the beginning of 2000s, we had a chance to reevaluate last year, because in Armenia people understood that the recognition of the Armenian genocide should be changed a little bit and put on a different track, which will be more efficient, that we have to file legal claims towards Turkey and the Turkish government, and they have to take it seriously. So it's a slow process, but it's going on. And the last point I want to make is the closed borders and conflicts are not the best way to transform identities. So what we have in Armenia is a post-genocide and post-Soviet identity, which is so difficult to change because of myriad of circumstances. And if it's possible to innovate Armenian identity given the closed borders, given the conflict, it's a big question hanging in the air. Thank you.